Well, I escaped from West Virginia. After a long day of dead mauling, I'm heading back to my room to tuck into a container of chicken tenders and then go to sleep. I filmed 4 malls today. And I'm trying to plot out my next move right now, but I can't get any of my friends to message me back to let me know where they're at. I died. I'm sorry.
Hello everyone, and welcome back. I'm your cruise director, Kristen, and this is Exton Square Mall in Exton, Pennsylvania. We came here as the first stop on the 2024 Dead Mall Summit, which is when those of us on the Dead Malls of Discord server meet up and caravan around the area to check out malls and just generally get into shenanigans. There's a link in the description to join our ragtag bunch of misfits, and I invite you to come by. This was our 5th one, and I always look forward to seeing these folks again. After being part of the community for 6 years, they're like family. Plus, who's going to pass up the chance to take in a classic Rouse with a long history at golden hour? Not this crew. This is, in fact, the first mall I visited that was developed by the Rouse Company in my travels, unless you count what was left of Salem Mall in Trotwood, Ohio, way back in 2018. They were originally founded in 1939 by Hunter Moss and James W. Rouse in Baltimore, Maryland as an FHA mortgage lender. They had their hand in developing many important buildings and projects around Baltimore. By the 60s, they became one of the first and most influential mall development companies as they officially changed their name to the Rouse Company in 1966. Their first mall was Mondawmin Mall in Baltimore, Maryland, which opened on October 14, 1956, a mere 8 days after the Southdale Center opened in Edina, Minnesota, which is widely considered to have been the first modern American shopping mall. Mondawmin was open air when it opened, but it was enclosed in 1963. So the TLDR of all of that is that the Rouse Company had a huge influential hand in creating what we now know as a shopping mall, and was one of the first companies to begin developing them on a large scale. Now, if you want a full and intensive breakdown of their history, I highly recommend you check out a video about Baltimore's Harbor Place complex by my good friend Sal, who incidentally was somewhere on the highway en route to Exton when I shot this video. So everybody yell, "Hi, Sal." Exton Square Mall opened in March 1973 and was the first mall by the Rouse Company in this part of Pennsylvania. It featured one anchor, Strawbridge and Clothier, the first location of Chick-fil-A in Pennsylvania, and about 50 inline tenants. On the property, there was a historic house called the Zook House, which has stood on that spot since the 1700s. It remained on the property, cared for by the mall's owners, and served as the mall's management offices until their 1998 remodel. At the time, the house was quite literally lifted off its foundation and moved 300 feet southwest to make way for what would ultimately become Boscov's. Some malls can be disorienting when you just walk in and haven't really looked at the layout. I can't remember how many times I've been in a mall for the first time and turned a corner and was surprised it kept going, and I've actually gotten lost in malls before, if you can believe it. Exton has kind of a curious layout. One that myself and the other DMod creators that were there that evening, Sal and Brandon from Yodeling Loon Retail, found difficult to figure out without doing research, so I came home completely prepared to solve the mystery, and I'm happy to say I did. Exton Square was named such because it was literally square in its original layout. It was a centrally situated Strawbridge enclosure that's now Macy's, surrounded by what was described as a ring of inline tenants completely surrounding the anchor. This was a similar design used by Gruen at Northland Square Mall in Detroit. All the entrances to Macy's are inside the mall corridors. And this mall was massively expanded in 1998, adding 3 new anchors in the form of Sears, JCPenney, and Boscov's. They also added a food court and what was described in press releases as a completed upper level. It increased in size from 435,000 square feet to over 1 million, increasing the inline tenant capacity to 150. It really is massive as it stands today. The bottom level of the mall, as it stands today, is not a full level that is under the entire mall. It wraps around about half of it, and it abruptly ends near the 2 Macy's entrances. Our confusion came from the description of the mall as a ring of stores. We were standing there in front of the end of the bottom level, speculating about what was behind that wall. Was it the rest of Macy's? Is there some forgotten entrance corridor behind that wall? Pristine, wood-paneled, brown basket weave tile, avocado green wall accents. Some people dream of Disney World. We dream of Chess King and Orange Julius. I found a map of the mall from an advertising section a few years after the mall opened. When it was built, the upper and lower levels did not surround the mall completely. There was a half ring on the upper level and the other half was the bottom level, and the two were connected by escalators. The terrain around here is not exactly what you'd call flat, so the property sloped slightly, making this layout fit the terrain. When the 1998 remodel happened, the rest of a second floor was added to complete the ring. Mystery solved, and fellas, I accept payment in shout-outs, gas cards, and sugar-free Red Bull. Pennsylvania, it could be argued, may have been the most overmulled state in the country. In my series where I studied this phenomenon, I discussed how the 90s became a sort of arms race in many metro areas around the country as developers competed for who could be the biggest and most spectacular. There was a boom in the 90s of new super regional malls, and it led to many of the older properties feeling like they needed to expand dramatically to compete. If we're not new, we can sure look like we are. In the mid-90s, that was the market force that caused Exton to expand. In 1993, two different mall developers, Taubman and Kravco, announced tentative plans to each build malls exceeding 1 million square feet, less than 2 miles from Exton Square. The Kravco plan had been abandoned by 1996, 2 years before the renovations at Exton were completed, but Taubman Centers was still seeking a piece of land to build on as late as 1999. If either of these malls were ever built, I can't find any evidence of it. I got here around 6 p.m. I parked at Boscov's, and when I walked through that exit into the mall, I was like, I'm home. I cannot stress enough, the dual-story 90s malls like this are my absolute favorite. The marble, the skylights, the green sheen of tempered glass. I call them palace malls. While I was filming, the sun started going down, and you could see just how much natural light there is in this space because, as you can see, there aren't a lot of interior lights on in the mallway at all. It was actively dark by the time the mall closed and all of us made our way out. So this golden hour atmosphere really makes these shots moody, and I just love how these turned out. The mall's design is very 90s. You can compare this mall with a lot of others built or remodeled around the same time, for example, Tri-County in Cincinnati, or even something like Irondequoit Mall in New York. Huge skylights running the length of the mall were all but required. I think along with it looking beautiful, they maybe wanted to use less interior lighting to save money and electricity. By the way, I did not tune up the color on the plants. I know it looks like I did, but the sun has bleached them this unnatural, dare I say, vaporwave evocative shade of electric teal. It's so fake and I love it. Exton Square currently has 3 of its 4 anchor pads occupied. The original Strawbridge's turned Macy's and Boscov's, which is the only remaining anchor tenant from the 3 that were added in the 1998 expansion. Expectedly, as has happened everywhere, JCPenney and Sears are no longer open. JCPenney closed in 2014 and was replaced, at least on one level, by Round 1 Entertainment, a large arcade and entertainment complex. Sears left in 2019 and remains vacant. The mall's future hangs in the balance. Its current owners, the Pennsylvania Real Estate Investment Trust, or PREIT as they're usually called, has owned the mall since 2003, 1 year before the entire Rouse Company was sold to General Growth Properties. This mall was placed up for sale in 2022, and they entered talks with Brandywine Realty Trust to purchase it that fell through for reasons not publicized. An article published in April of this year states that according to its owners, this mall is 62% leased, and it's got to be lower now. I would have to estimate about 60% of the mall is empty as far as storefronts that actually open for business. Many of them are unconventional tenants. There are some schools, workshops, and medical facility called Mainline Health that opened on the lower level in 2014, and there is very little traffic. I went in one store to buy a couple things, and the owner who rung me out said I was the first customer he had all day, and that's just really sad. The same article also stated that PREIT considers Exton Square to be a non-core part of its portfolio and that they have no plans to invest in or expand the property. They want to sell it. Who can say at this point who will buy it and what they will do with it? This seems to be a fairly desirable area surrounded by businesses that are doing well, so it'll be interesting to watch. Thank you for watching. If you've made it this far, you obviously like something you're seeing, so give us a like and subscribe. We've got a group of more malls from this area coming soon, and I'd love to share them with you. It's probably safe to say this place isn't going to be around much longer, and if you'd like to see it, I suggest you come out to Pennsylvania and take a look at it now, before it's just another empty space. You could even say a comeback at this point is against all odds.
Well, Pennsylvania, it's been real, but it's time for me to head. Well, Pennsylvania, it's been real, but it's time for me to head back to the Mountain State. Be good, would you?